Hola y'all, how's it going? Welcome to my channel, Austin Vlogs en Inglés y Español, English and Spanish. I speak in English because it gets more interesting for people who might want to travel from the United States to Venezuela. This video is going to be all about Venezuela. How I got a visa as an American to visit Venezuela, what documents I needed, what the appointments were like, and then I'm going to explain the flight process. If you want more videos like this, click subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up, would really help my channel. Thanks for coming along for the ride. I wanted to explain why I'm making this video. I actually went to Venezuela for 3 weeks of 2022. I was there for New Year's Eve. And after I left, I posted a photo from Caracas and I explained in the comment section what the process was like for me. I get asked, probably more than anything else on social media, I get asked, how did you get a visa to Venezuela? It deserves some nuance because it's not a straightforward answer and it definitely varies for every person. Also want to say, this video is just my experience, it's not advice, I don't get paid to do this. Venezuela is on the do not travel list for American citizens, US citizens. You should definitely check the State Department website. I recommend knowing someone on the ground, someone who lives in Venezuela that can take care of you and meet you and help you throughout this whole process. So as far as timing goes, it took me about 2 months. I heard it can take 3 months. I also did it in person by going to the Venezuelan embassy in Mexico City, and you're gonna mail things, it might take even longer. No idea. The other thing to know is that I never had an appointment. I did not call the Venezuelan embassy and make an appointment. I don't even know if you can. I remember there was like a website that I think said something about appointments, but I don't think it was working. It was crazy. So I showed up in Polanco, and I believe it closes at 2 p.m. So I think it opens around 8 or 9 and closes around 2. I recommend going in the morning, get a number, you get called to the counter, you do some processing, and then you can leave, and then you come back, and basically I went to the embassy 4 times. The staff was super friendly, super nice to me. The other thing to note is that my visa was only valid for 3 months. And does include multiple entries. So if I wanted to, I could go to Venezuela for a week, come back to Mexico for a week, go back to Venezuela, but only a duration of 3 months. Now let's talk about what I needed. So here's a list of the documents that I needed to process the visa. So one is a person in Venezuela to sponsor me, to sponsor your visa. So I used the mother of my partner, who is Venezuelan, lives in Venezuela currently. I put down her contact information. So I had to give her name, her full address, her phone number, and a copy of her ID. Another thing I needed was a round trip flight and hotel reservation booked. So you need to know when you're arriving, when you're leaving, and the hotel. The other thing was the hotel. I booked a hotel that had free cancellation up until like a week in advance or a few days in advance so that I knew that I could cancel if I didn't get my visa. Another thing that I needed was a medical certificate. Now this was a little weird. I had to go to a pharmacy, and I don't know if you've ever been to a pharmacy in Mexico, but they'll have like little booths, like a small little office, consultorio it's called, like a little consultation office. Can often do like a health check, a medical check. So they like check your blood pressure and your heart rate, and they do like a general, it's sort of like a physical, but like a light version, and they like fill out a paper. They give you this paper and you're gonna need to give that paper to the embassy. To be fair, I don't think I had one. Told the embassy people that, and they made me go get one and come back. So it took about like an hour, 2 hours walking around Polanco. I think I did have to go to like 3 pharmacies before there was one that would actually like give me the consult and give me the paper that I needed like that day within that time frame, but it was no big deal, and I just like went right back to the embassy with the official document. The next thing I needed was the official form, but I did not have it. I didn't see it on the internet. I'd never seen it before, but when I got there on the first appointment, when they called my name, well, they look at all of your documents, and that's when they gave me a form that I had not yet filled out because I didn't see it online, and I filled it out right then and there. And I needed 2 printed photos, just little passport photos. In Polanco in Mexico City, there are tons of little passport photo offices because you also have the Mexican immigration office, which I can talk about in another video, is really close. It's like maybe 10 blocks away in Polanco. So in that general area, there are a lot of little places that you can get your passport photos taken for like, I don't know, $5. Another thing that I needed was $30 in US dollars. The Venezuelan currency, bolivares. I've never seen one. Spent 3 weeks in Venezuela and never saw a printed bolivar, the currency. Never saw it. So you use dollars while you're in Venezuela. I recommend bringing cash, and I had to have $30 cash at the embassy. They don't give change, so if you only have 40, tough luck. You need to have that currency with you when you apply, submit your application, and they give you like a little receipt that proves that you paid. Another thing that you need is proof of residency. So I just used my internet bill and was able to print that out and say like, this is where I live. It had my name and address on it. You just need like a document, an official document, or it could be like a bank statement to prove your residency. And finally, they want to know that you have income, so you're not going to just like go to Venezuela, I guess, and try to work in Venezuela or build a life there or create a business or something. So I just brought in a printed statement, my printed work contract that showed that I had employment at the time. The thing that I also brought, which I don't think you need anymore, is proof of vaccination for COVID. I'm not sure what the situation is now, but I went during COVID. So I not only brought a COVID test from like within 48 hours of my travel. When I landed in Caracas, they did a COVID test in person, and then I went to the hotel, and then they like tell you a day or two later if you have COVID, and if you do, then you're not allowed to leave your hotel. I don't think that process is going on anymore, but just wanted to be clear. So I'll be honest, I cannot remember exactly how many times I went to the consulate, but I have written down that it was 4. The first time I went, I submitted the documents, filled out the form. They told me it would be like 2 weeks. So I go back 2 weeks later and I check in and they're like, oh, we're not ready yet. Because they told me they would call me, but it wasn't like an appointment. It wasn't confirmed. I just had to be like on standby. I think like the third time I went, they were like, okay, yeah, we can do the interview. Just go upstairs and wait. So the interviews are done by like these lawyers that are very professional, super kind and polite. My experience was they were very nice. Reviewed my documents. They asked me questions. Why was I going? Who was I going with? What was the purpose of my travel? They asked me about my job, what I did for a living, what was the purpose of my job, different things like that. But they were super kind, and so I think it really helped that I had like Pedro to go with on this trip. So after the interview, I've now submitted all the documents, had the interview, paid, and I have my proof of payment. Now the 4th time I had to go to the embassy was to pick up my passport. So I left my passport there like 48 hours, and then they call me when the passport is ready. He called me back and he's like, okay, you've been approved, you can come pick up your passport. So I go back, maybe it was like between like 4 and 5 days. So this whole process has taken like, in the meantime, 2 months totally. I go back, I get my passport. At this point, I think my flight was supposed to be in like 2 weeks, but I had to go back to the US for Christmas with my family, grab my passport with the Venezuelan visa. I then go to the United States, spend some time with my family. Then I fly from the United States to Mexico City, then Mexico City, Cancun, then Cancun, Caracas. There's one more piece I want to point out about the things I had to have printed for Conviasa, the airline. In order to board my flight in Cancun, from Cancun to Caracas, I did have to show proof of my return flight. And not only that, it had to be printed. It wasn't just like, oh, here it is on my phone. I don't know why, but they wanted everything printed. So I had all my other documents printed, but not my return flight information. I just had it on my phone. I had to like pay someone like $10 in the Cancun airport because there were no shops where they had a printer. And so this guy, like, I emailed it to him, he runs away, gets in a car, goes I don't know where. Oh, I think he like prints it out in his car, someone told me. But it's like a big scam because they know that Conviasa, this Venezuelan airline, requires printed copies, and like nobody's prepared for that because it's 2022. And therefore, they charge you. Also had to have one of 2 things. a hotel booked for the entire time I would be in Caracas, or the letter from the person who's gonna like host you and receive you while you're in the country. So luckily I had that letter from Pedro, but I think he even had to like write it while I was in the airport. And so I had to have that letter printed along with everything else. So you either need that full detailed letter from the person who's hosting you or the proof of the hotel for the duration of your entire stay. Okay, I hope that was helpful as far as understanding a little bit about like how I got a visa. Again, I think that it's really at the discretion of the government, like all visas in the world, but knowing someone in Venezuela who's gonna be there to help you is definitely very helpful. Okay, so that was like story time for how to get a visa. Now let's move on to maybe the more tramoya, the more scandalous part of the trip.